super blessed and happy to be sharing the stage with you today. I would have tried and move a little bit. I'll move myself a little bit to you. Right. Nothing would have been better in preparation for this panel than what happened over the weekend. And what we've seen over the weekend is really the world as we know it from a financial services point of view not being able to function. In the most succinct way, maybe a less than 20-second introduction, starting with the lady on the panel.
With the lady on the panel?
Yes.
Yeah, that's me.
Always ladies first.
Thank you. Well, hi everyone. So first of all, thank you so much for having me here today. And secondly, my condolences to the victims of the earthquake in Turkey. So yes, I'm Mehtap Önder. As you can tell from my name, I am originally Turkish, but born and raised in Denmark and been living here in Dubai for the past 5 years. I'm the managing director of GC Exchange in Dubai, and we are a broker for trading in virtual assets. I'm not going to call it cryptocurrencies, because I've been told that, but in virtual assets. And we are regulated in the UK, we are regulated in Europe, in Denmark, and here in Dubai by VARA.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mehtap. Over to you, Kuzey.
Hi, my name is Christian. I'm the Senior Executive Officer of SEBA Bank. We are one of 2 regulated banks who received in 2019 from FINMA the banking license, and we are also operating out of Abu Dhabi, Hong Kong, and Singapore.
Wonderful. Last but very not the least.
Nice to meet you, everyone. My name is Gilson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of AF Compliance. My background is investment banking. I was an investment banker for JP Morgan in Europe, in the US. I moved to the region about 3 years ago. I was one of the founding members on one of the first regulated exchanges in ADGM in Abu Dhabi. And from there on, I saw an opportunity to create VAF Compliance. We are based out of the IFC, and it's a pleasure to be here.
Wonderful, and it's a pleasure to share the stage with you. And dear audience, we didn't promise you too much. Real experts in the space, people that set this up for the very first time. Now, we're talking about DeFi today. Just by a show of hands, who knows what DeFi is? All right, okay, so the majority of the room hasn't put their hands up. A quick introduction, what is DeFi and why is it relevant?
Oh, no.
Okay, decentralized finance, I guess. It's as simple as I can put it. We use it every day. I think DeFi really has kind of changed the way we see the world, especially when it comes to traditional banking. You know, in the new economy, as an example, I think 1.7 billion in the world are unbanked. This is where DeFi comes in. 1.1 billion people in the world have access to a mobile phone. So people today, they don't experience banking as probably I experienced, traditional going to the branches and so on. They experience in some sort of mobile application. And that's really how DeFi has come and is, let's call it, an unstoppable force.
Wonderful. And with that, we've seen an entire new world of financial services being opened up. Elements that were previously closed off to accredited investors and large financial services institutions today are available to the public. 2021 was a little bit of a joyride upwards in the crypto world. 2022, a little bit of a reckoning. 2023, definitely a reckoning. We've seen a lot go right, we've seen a lot go wrong. Where are the opportunities in DeFi? Mehtap.
There was actually a lot of opportunities, if you ask me. But before we go into the opportunities, I think it's very important to discuss regulation. I mean, we need to understand that this is a market that is moving away from being not mature to becoming a mature market, hopefully very soon. Yes. It doesn't really help with what's happening lately. But and I think it's very important to understand that it's, as I said before, it's a new market and we need regulation. We cannot move into this market without the governments taking responsibility to actually implement regulation. We need regulation for investor protection. We need regulation for companies such as SEPA, such as GCX, and you guys to be able to operate, to be able to provide our services. So that is one of the things. Regulation is absolutely key, and we need, you know, strong governments and leaders to establish this. And I think, before I say further, I think UAE has been a great example of that. Other opportunities is, hey, I mean, we are talking about the Turkish Arab Forum here, right? I think Turkey is a good example to say that, you know, I need to be careful what I say here,
Yes,
but with
do be careful. Arab Forum.
but you know, with the inflation rate, with the capital control in Turkey, I think DeFi is one of the best examples where you can actually see opportunities, especially, you know, for the retail clients, or for investors in general, right? So it's a new industry. There is a lot of opportunities, especially in countries like Turkey.
I want to challenge what you said a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wide call for regulation, right? And you're right. It's a new emerging industry. People don't know what to do with it just yet. But here we are just after this weekend, where, you know, a traditional industry that's been regulated for close to 100 years, and we still saw the demise of one of the leading institutions. Will regulations really enable us to establish this opportunity for everyone?
So I think we need to look at it at this point. One thing is having a regulator that's supervising you, and another thing is to actually have a governance infrastructure internally in your company, and to have the respect for rules and regulation that has been implemented, right? I mean, one thing is to be licensed, and another thing is to actually understand what it means to be licensed and comply by the rules. There's two different things here. You can tick all the boxes, but if you don't follow and if you don't understand it, then what happens, and with all due respect with the SVB, I don't want to comment on what happened. As Kokila said before, it could be, you know, an issue with the regulators, it could be an internal thing, and it could be lack of, you know, understanding of risk. I think it's very important to have a huge respect for risk, just in general. This is also why we saw the crash with FTX. You know, they obviously didn't understand what risks means, and what it means to actually comply by the rules and regulations.
Right.
But I think SVB, again, it's you know, what does it actually mean? And with Fed constantly increasing the interest rates without giving, you know, the companies, you know, a room for breathe, right? They're not allowed to breathe before the next interest rate goes up, right? I mean, I have my dear colleague here from the banking industry as well. I mean, I'm sure he can comment more on it. But I think it's overall, you know, yes, rules and regulations are important, but you need to understand as a company what it means and how you implement it, and have respect for those rules, as well as for risk in general.
Right.
I would like to complement that to that. I think totally right. I think the digital space industry, it's always held to a higher standard than the traditional TradFi industry, right? But you still had Enron, you still had Wirecard, you still had Lehman's.
Right.
But for some reason, if it happens in our space, then okay, everything has to fall down. We have to take 20 steps back, right? But at the end of the day, regulation is good. It will bring transparency, and it will instill confidence in the public. But at the end of the day, it will come down to people. And you have bad players everywhere. So to your point, there has to be always an element of self-regulation. And again, I think the EU is doing the right thing, putting the regulation, but that by itself will definitely not solve everything.
I'm with you. And I've slowly but surely come to the conclusion that as much as regulation is desperately required and needed, we are at a point where technology innovation is happening at a pace where regulation and the form of governance that we're used to is simply not ready to deal with the fast pace of the regulation. Having said that, Zeba Bank, you were one of the first native crypto banks probably in the world, right? To get a full banking license out of FINMA. Tell us a little bit about that journey.
Well, unfortunately, I was not part of it, but what I can share that it was a hell of a ride to get that license from FINMA. Obviously, for FINMA governance, the people behind it and the investors were key. They had to be DD'd thoroughly. But also, what I would add to the DeFi part, it's important that also we as a bank, we were struggling to get the approval from FINMA for the first permission DeFi on Aave Arc.
Right.
We actually got voted as one of the first validator, or the first institutional validator on that platform.
Right.
But FINMA said no. And there's still an educational part missing. So we still need to be out there. We need to educate as well the regulators. That's what we are doing on a frequent basis. Is it in Abu Dhabi? Is it in Switzerland? Or is it in Asia? And on top of that, as you guys said, the risk is here. The risk is all the time here as well with the banks, with DeFi. But at the end, it's what Gilson said nicely, it's the people.
Right.
Yeah.
So we've
And,
identified people
sorry,
as being
and-
one risk.
Yeah.
I want to play this back to you, Mahtab.
Sorry, just to come back on the opportunities again in DeFi,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're seeing what happened over the weekend. I think people in general lost a little bit trust in the traditional
A little
finance,
bit?
but just well, a lot, right? And now moving away, I mean, you have seen the prices of Bitcoin lately going up. Well, because people are moving away from the dollar and investing in Bitcoin, right? So, I mean, I'm not saying that we should see more of these crashes, hopefully
Right.
not, but
Right.
it just gives, more opportunities to DeFi, for sure.
Right. Obviously, with the financial institutions as we know them not being able to keep up with these crashes, we'll see more and more interest in alternative investments, and crypto being one of them. How does crypto and DeFi relate to each other? Do you have to have crypto to have DeFi? Do you have to have DeFi to crypto? Who can explain that to the audience in the most simple terms?
Thanks. I would say no. DeFi.
part?
Sorry.
Which
Sorry.
part no?
No. Right. So I would say that you don't necessarily have to have crypto or digital assets in DeFi, right? Obviously, we specifically talking about digital space, but like I said, like traditional banking, that's DeFi. That's about the banks actually, updating some of the services. Like talk about more traditional stuff like savings accounts and those kind of
Right.
things. Like, all these things can be replaced by smart contracts. Someone mentioned that in the group before. I used to do collateral management at JP Morgan. So that's derivatives. And that contract, you have a contract, you have a person, you have a clearing house. Smart contract can solve all that, make it more transparent, make it more efficient. Tokenization, everybody's talking about that. You can tokenize physical assets, financial products, and again, make it more efficient, make it more clear. It really, on the new economy, bring it to everyone, make it more simpler. So no, is the answer I would say. DeFi doesn't start or stop with digital assets.
Right. So you could do DeFi without digital assets, Mahtab?
Not if we talk about digital assets in general, not necessarily crypto assets, but digital assets, then the answer is no. You couldn't do it without it in some shape or
Right.
form.
Right.
Yes.
All right. Wonderful. Mahtab, where do you find one of the largest short-term opportunities within the DeFi space, and maybe even bringing this closer to this Turkish Arab Forum we're in?
That's a good question. I mean, coming back to Turkish Arab Forum and the DeFi space, I think Turkey needs to move fast now.
Right.
Turkey has a special place in my heart, although I lived abroad my whole life. But I've seen Turkey. So I've been working in Turkey for many years in my previous job, and I used to see Turkey as a fast mover, especially in the financial industry. And I think lately, especially in the DeFi industry, that Turkey has taken a step back, which is, in my view, disappointing to see. And one of the reasons being is that I know for sure, I've seen it myself firsthand, that the talent pool in Turkey is extremely high. You know, you have very, very good talented people sitting there and very educated people sitting there, and that wants to take a part of the DeFi industry and to move it forward. But it seems like there is an obstacle from the top. And unfortunately, that gives regions like the GCC, like the UAE, Bahrain, an opportunity to be the first runners, the first movers in this industry. And that means that companies just like myself, well, hey, we are, you know, we operate, well, we want to be a part of the DeFi and we operate in that industry. Where do we want to set up? Where do we want to invest our money? Well, we want to do it in a place that are first movers, you know, that actually want to be a part of this. And where we find that there is, again, you know, strong government, strong regulation, stability, no capital restrictions, right? So that's where we want to set up. And I think talking about the whole Turkish Arab, I feel like Turkey has taken a step back. I've been visiting Turkey lately a couple of times actually, and although hey, Turkey had they actually drafted the rules around virtual assets long before anyone did here in UAE,
Right.
maybe not ADGM, but before VARA, you know, and it's still sitting there and waiting while the Arab countries are moving forward. And now even with Sama in Saudi talking about entering the virtual asset space, we in Turkey are still waiting. I think it's sad because as the audience, you know, the panel before said, you know, Turkey is one of the biggest markets in the virtual asset space, right?
Right.
And we should still be a part of that.
And I think with that, Turkey, I think, is playing a very important role from a talent point of view.
Absolutely.
And particularly, and to be honest, I was surprised. I had the pleasure of visiting Turkey again a couple of months ago, about a thriving gaming ecosystem over there and
Yes.
game developers of the highest caliber coming out of Turkey. Switching gears on that a little bit, Kasen, you were here working with the regulators pretty much from the beginning of the journey of SEBA locally. What do you feel are learnings that you can pass on, if any, from your experience here to our Turkish counterparts?
To be honest, I have never met such a hand-on regulator with the FSRA and ADGM. They were very welcoming from the beginning. We knocked on several doors in 2020. We went to the DIFC. They said, no, thank you, we don't like crypto. All right, I call up my dear friend Richard. Back then, he used still to work for Binance. Then a month later, he left, no, at ADGM. And then he left to Binance. He said, come to ADGM. We are open for it. We came. We explained exactly what we want to do. They said, okay, we don't have the specific license yet, but there is a lab that you can go, and we will build a license for you.
Nice.
And this is how it started. So they give you the opportunity as well to work closely with certain people to create a license.
So public-private partnerships, that's one. Any other take-back that you would, from your experience, recommend that other government, other regulators follow?
The appetite.
The appetite.
Yeah,
Right.
the appetite to learn, the appetite to be the first mover. Right now, what I'm hearing is that they want to issue licensing on tokenizing securities. They want to issue licenses on a DAO.
Right.
Imagine that. to regulate the
I
DAO.
don't like to imagine that, but I'm glad we're in conversations with them there as well. All right, so here's public-private partnerships as a takeaway. Here's essentially the appetite, the willingness to try something new. You've moved here 3 years ago. I may guess probably because of the uproar of crypto, digital assets, blockchain entities moving over here. At Crypto Oasis, we announced this being the most important ecosystem in the world. At the time, it was a good idea. Now the numbers are there to prove it. Today, the ecosystem consists of 1,650 companies. If we look at on-chain data, the UAE is the most active in the entire region. What was your experience from moving here to today?
Well, I actually moved because of my wife.
Okay, that's a much better reason, by the way.
But it worked out okay. No, it was so for me when I moved, obviously coming from traditional banking, coming from a place like JP Morgan where everybody had one job. It was quite interesting moving to a startup at the time. I moved with MeChains at the time, and I experienced the same thing as Christian said. I was particular over the part of custody. So we were, again, one of the first ones. There was no rule book, so we were writing the rule book. But definitely from that moment on, it was very hard, obviously, to go through it with the regulator, the GEM-FSRA, to actually then achieve the license and be regulated. But again, it was very rewarding. And it goes back again to what Christian said, the appetite, the risk appetite. So the regulator was definitely ready to welcome the technology in time to understand together with you what was the best solution.
Right.
And we were all together in this, trying to work and trying to build something together. And we did, and it continues. Obviously, EDGM, and now we have VARA, of course. And you can see the strides that from the moment 3 years ago where we were, comparing to what we're now, it's tremendous. It's a totally different world. And people sometimes will tell you, oh, you guys were visionaries to come to Dubai. My friends would tell me back in London, you're visionary, come to Dubai. Now everybody wants to come here.
Right.
But you came 3 years before.
Right.
But it's like, I wish I had that vision. Right. I didn't really, but it seems like it now. But 100%, and that is down to the regulator. Again, some people mentioned in the panel before, you can actually go and meet the regulator. I remember my times in banking.
If you allow me, I love how, did you notice? You could go and meet the regulators and everyone nodded because the 3 of them, although they are emerging businesses, actually worked with a regulator. Where else in the world? Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely, because nowhere else in the world you can do that. I mean, no way you're going to meet a regulator in the UK. That is definitely not on the cards.
Right. Right.
So it's just that friendliness, it's just that openness, and that really transpired to our ecosystem. As a compliance firm, we are inundated with requests from all over the world, literally all over the world, with people that want to move here because they see it on the news and they want to understand how vibrant the ecosystem and they want to be part of it.
And you come out of the traditional industry, right, for all intents and purposes, moving to this emerging space. When you think about compliance, which is your area of expertise, do you see 1 or 2 things that could be improved immediately?
Yes, I think regulation definitely can help in that, and this to level the field in terms of transparency, so everybody knows where they need to be. What is the bar?
Right.
What do we need to achieve? So I think that's a massive step. And then I would say compliance hopefully will help also solve, which is someone also mentioned in the previous panel, the biggest issues that we still have, which is again banking. Right? So if we can have this conversation with the regulator, with the central bank, with the FSRA, the IFC, VARA, then hopefully by showing that, you know, in the blockchain we're able to trace, even maybe perhaps than fiat, showing that people are compliant in terms of from a procedural point of view, with manuals and policies, with the right tools. If we continue to have the conversation, education, then yes, I think that compliance 100% has a very, very integral role to play as part of, as we evolve.
All right, I'm sitting in the audience, and I'm listening, and I'm seeing that, hey, this sounds like an interesting thing. I want to read and learn more about this, where do I go?
To read more about
The DeFi space, the
DeFi
crypto space, the tokenization space.
Well, call us. No. So, well, I must say one thing is that although, this is still a new industry and it's still a new industry for many places, for many countries. But I think UAE in general is definitely one of the places you can learn a lot from. You can learn a lot from the regulator's website. You can learn a lot from the communities, the ecosystem that has been built. I think Crypto Oasis is a good example of that. I think a lot of good things have come out of UAE in terms of the DeFi space and just in general virtual assets. And I think, again, I think UAE is leading by example when it comes to this industry. And I think going back to regulation and compliance, I think also there's a fine line to not over-regulate the industry. And I think this is one of the places where UAE has also been really, really good to actually, collaborate and to have a dialogue with the entities or with the companies that want to set up here in this industry to say, hey, how can we actually help you? So we from my personal experience is that I've seen the regulator asking us, how can we help you? But you need to understand, I need to regulate you. Where I say, yes, please regulate me, but this is how I want it to be regulated. Like, it's a very nice dialogue we have had over the past, I would say, a year at least with Vara. And before joining Vara, I used to work as a consultant and was actually setting up a lot of, helping brokers and exchanges to set up in the UAE. And it was the same thing. We had a dialogue and we were educating each other. And now that education has slowly becoming public for everyone to get access to. You have Calm Legal that has done an amazing analysis over, the different jurisdictions. You have Crypto Oasis, who's constantly, inviting people over to seminars, educational groups, as well as events. So I think, this region is a good example from, and again, talking about over-regulation, let's look at Europe. London used to be one of the financial hubs,
Right.
at least in Europe. Hey, I don't think so anymore.
I agree.
I think UAE is becoming one of those places, and that's also why we see a lot of companies moving away from Europe and UK to now UAE, and that could be ADGM or Dubai for that case, right? Because we are regulating more, but we are not over-regulating, and we still have a dialogue with the companies in the industry, and not just like FCA where you actually just you feel like you're hey, take a ticket and wait in the queue like everyone else to communicate with us, right? So.
And the numbers really prove it, right? That everyone is moving to the UAE, to the IFC, set up more hedge funds than ever before last year, defining new licenses with Turkish thought leadership with that as well. Alper, I'm looking at you there. We are seeing talented individual moving here to the UAE. And personally, as Slacker, I firmly believe in this Arab-Turkish partnership, UAE-Turkish partnership in particularly. The talented individuals that we have in Turkey, the level of sophistication in particularly design, gaming, and development is probably one of the best in the region. With that, today we're seeing bridges being built where Turkish companies can tap into the UAE and UAE companies can tap into the talent in Turkey and actively supporting that. This has been an absolutely insightful panel, even for me as someone that I deal with this on a daily basis. Having said that, in 1 minute or less to each one of you, paint us a picture of how the world will look like 5 years from now, where DeFi, has it been adopted? Has it not been adopted? Has the Bitcoin replaced the dollar? Has is everything in the metaverse? But in 1 minute or less, starting from
Yeah.
from you.
I would say definitely DeFi, you can't stop. That kind of is a force, you won't be able to stop that. So this is when we come to this kind of forums, when we talk to the traditional banks, they need to be aware how they're going to start adopting this and be more open to this technology. What really excites me is something someone touched before, which is
1 minute or less.
AI, which
Okay.
I think will be the next big thing, even when it comes to also DeFi applied to that sense.
Wonderful. Mahtab.
No, I agree. I mean, 5 years ago, you would not have many panel discussions about DeFi, I think, right? And now we're sitting here, and I think in each and every forum or events, you have a panel about virtual assets. So 5 years from now, I think, talking about this region and Turkey, I think I really fingers crossed for Turkey to move forward in this industry. I really, really want to see Turkey in the front of the DeFi landscape, especially. As I said before, the talent pool is very, very high. There is a high adoption, just in general, of virtual assets. It's just a matter of pushing from the government side to say, you go. As I said before, the rules are there. We're just pressing the button to be published. And yeah, I mean, it's here to stay, and the banks will have to open up for it because it's not gonna go.
Thank you. Christian, 1 minute or less. How will the world look like in 5 years?
I think amazing. I have the feeling that everything will be on smart contracts. We will have AI for sure, and Bitcoin is here to stay.
Good. Now, I'd like to close this out with having you imagine that I come to each one of you here in the room. Which one of you is using the anyone does not use the internet here? Right, everyone uses the internet. Imagine it's 1994, and we come to you and we tell you, hey, there's this technology out there that's going to be in your pocket. You're going to order your groceries, you're going to order your clothes, you're going to book your flights. You're going to do that using something called the internet. In 1994, you would have had a hard time convincing people that this would be possible. I think what the panel here will sign off on in one way or the other is that the opportunity of blockchain, DeFi, tokenization, metaverse, call it what you may, is probably as large as the internet. So with that, I'd like to tell you that it's 1994, blockchain, DeFi, Web3 is the internet. Thank you very much for listening. Please give the panel a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you, Sakar, and the rest of the panelists. I would like to thank everyone joined us today. We couldn't do a better closure than this session. Looking forward to see you all. This event is just a start. We launched Turkish Arab Economic Forum in 2005 in Istanbul, and this is the first Turkish Arab Financial Forum. Looking forward to invite you soon to another city in the GCC where we can meet again and explore different opportunities and meet new friends and business partners. Thank you again, all of you, and please join us for a coffee and let's do the last round of networking.